Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality you would expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, we have Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
Doing good. Opening day for the NBA.
There you go. Excellent. I saw sports related. I saw the Diamondbacks have made it to the World Series. I was like, hey, good for our team. Yay.
Your team.
Huh?
Your team.
I mean, okay, yeah, my team. As you know, a born and bred Arizonan, yes, my team. That I never pay attention to. And also joining us, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on?
Which team is yours?
You're a Mets guy, right?
I'm a Mets guy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. My baseball
Cameron
season
likes
ended
to inflict
already.
misery
I'm not
onto
paying attention.
himself.
I'm not. It's true. I'm a Mets fan. I'm a Jets fan. I'm a Nets fan. I'm an Islanders fan. There is no joy in sports for me.
I mean, but like, also like apart from Dodgers, where does any of that come from? Because your family's not New York.
My mom's from Long Island.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom's from Long Island, so I grew up. My dad's from Vegas, so like my dad doesn't have any sports teams that he's affiliated with.
Yeah, they didn't have a team.
Sure.
Yeah.
The earliest sports team they got was an XFL team.
Yeah. There you go.
In the OG XFL, and then after that, the next big sports franchise to come to Vegas was
wasn't it like hockey a few years ago?
The Golden Knights.
They
actually won like
they won like in their second season or whatever. Yeah.
And then they got the Raiders, like the Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Possibly the A's.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to dive down sports talk. Today we're talking about The Simpsons instead. As we wrap up our Halloween 2023 month, we are continuing the trend that we started a couple years ago of a Treehouse of Horror medley, where each year we do kind of 3 episodes of Treehouse of Horror. So this being our third year, we're doing episodes 7, 8, and 9. Which were originally released. Episode 7 was originally released October 27th, 1996, just a few days before the election that it lampoons.
Yes.
Episode 8 was October 26th, 1997, and episode 9 was in season 10, October 25th, 1998. Very much, so Treehouse of Horror episode 7 was the season premiere of season 8, and then the other 2 were like the 4th episodes of their respective seasons. There's a weird thing on Disney Plus where like an episode from like the back half of the season has been like slotted in episode 9, so it shows as like the 5th episode on Disney Plus. I was like, that's weird, but as I looked at like airing order, no, it was the 4th. So yes, this was probably the last of these that will take place in the like golden era of The Simpsons, which most people kind of attribute to like seasons 2 through 10. So we'll get into like Treehouse of Horror. I think is something that probably more than anything bucks the trend of like the ebbs and flows of Simpsons.
20,
but
Treehouse of Horror 20 is phenomenal.
Funny enough, I watched recently just a couple weeks ago a breakdown of Super Eye Patch Wolf, watching the trying to see because people are saying now The Simpsons is good again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it's been brought up. He kind of did an analysis of like what has been going on in The Simpsons over the last.
I think I might have seen.
Years.
I don't know who's made the video, but I definitely saw a video recently that went over this as well.
Is he Irish? Does he have an Irish accent?
Maybe
Does he sound like he's probably extremely handsome and buff? Because if so, that's Super Eye Patch Wolf. He's one of my favorite video essayists, and he's so fantastic, and he's so goddamn handsome that it's like it boggles my mind why he was like a faceless YouTuber for such a long time, because he's so ridiculously good looking.
Speaking of ridiculously good looking, and in this case, friends of ours who work on The Simpsons, shout out to Ava Enriquez.
That's right. Yeah.
Partner of former That Nerdy Site co-founder Ben Bellevue out there. She's been working with The Simpsons for a few years now.
Yeah, quite a few.
So I think I definitely did this in the last episode of these. I think I maybe did it the first time around too. But as we tend to talk in our movie stuff, here are other releases of the time. I've gone through for each of the years of these episodes to try and pull like the big spooky or Halloweeny kinds of things each year. So other releases in 1996, there were no like big major like October or even September like Halloween things, but the big horror movies that year were The Frighteners in July of that year with Michael J. Fox, which I remember not liking as a kid because I didn't like scary movies, but I watched it because I liked Michael J. Fox. And then far more iconic Scream coming out December 20th, 1996.
Potentially one of the most iconic horror films of all time.
One of the greatest.
But it's always weird. Like that was a Christmas release. weird timing.
I also will give a shout out to Scream, both because it's fantastic, as we just said, and also because it is a huge, major source of inspiration for Until Dawn as well, which is also great.
Sure. Moving on into 1997, we had this is more of an iconic year for me in terms of like, oh, I remember like those being the big horror movies. I Know What You Did Last Summer was October 17th, 1997, and less than a year later, Scream 2 came out December 12th, 1997. They really cranked those out. And then 1998 was a glut of spooky horror kind of theme things, featuring Halloween H2O 20 years later, a Jamie Lee Curtis, return to the series in August 5th, 1998. The Bride of Chucky was released October 16th. Halloween Town, which we did, on this series many moons ago now. The first Halloween Town there, October 17th, 1998. And then The Faculty, big spooky movie that I remember because of Jon Stewart, was December 25th, 1998. Another weird Christmas release for a horror film, but runtime, as always for these episodes, comes in at 20 minutes apiece. In the Simpsons timeline of things, as I said earlier, episode 7 was the season 7 premiere, which fell between season 8 premiere.
You did the same thing I did. That's why I watched 4 of these. Yep.
The season 8 premiere, which came between the Summer of 4'2" from season 6 and the iconic You Only Move Twice Bond parody.
I almost
featuring,
made it 5 one day. I was like, should I watch that too?
Yeah.
I might do it after this.
Featuring Hank Scorpio. And I meant to pull up, so I'm doing that right now, just like the brief like one-line synopses of each of these. So Summer 4'2" was, after realizing how unpopular she is, a disillusioned Lisa sees the vacation to Ned Flanders' beach house as an opportunity to reinvent herself. So that was one of those.
That's an all-time great episode.
And a fun Lisa story. And then, yes, the description here of You Only Move Twice. The Simpsons move to Cypress Creek, where Homer unwittingly works for a charismatic supervillain. The rest of the family struggles with the transfer. Yes, Hank Scorpio, of course, very Bond villain. Treehouse of Horror episode 8 fell in season 9 there between Lisa's Sax and the Cartridge Family. Lisa's Sax was Homer recounts the story of Bart's first day of school, which corresponds with the story of how Lisa got her saxophone. And then the Cartridge Family. After a massive soccer riot, Homer purchases a gun to protect the family.
That's right.
Yeah. I when I was looking at this on IMDb, like the image for the Cartridge Family is just basically Homer pointing a gun right down the barrel of the camera. It's just like, that's a jarring thing to see here in 2023.
Is that the one where he's like sitting out in front of his house waiting for the gun?
I don't remember.
No, I think that might have been Family Guy. Never mind, I take it back.
And then Treehouse of Horror episode 9 in season 10 fell between Bart the Mother. When Bart accidentally kills a mother bird, he tries to make amends by raising the eggs. And When You Dish Upon a Star, where Homer becomes a Hollywood insider when he befriends Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I remember that episode. Gosh.
Yeah.
Think 10's great.
So yeah, that's where all of these fall kind of in our Simpsons timeline of things. Our roll call, as we often do, we're going to cover too many names, so really all we're going to get to see is like, here's how many episodes of The Simpsons they did. But the director of episode 7 here was Mike B. Anderson, who I think probably one of the longest tenures of these in terms of director, because he's directed 364 episodes between 1996 and still going with 2023. He also directed the Simpsons ride in Universal Studios, which replaced the Back to the Future ride in Universal Studios. And I believe is now the Fast and Furious ride in Universal Studios. I think it's basically their motion simulator car thing. It might still be the Simpsons ride, and Fast and Furious might just be another thing on like the tour. The directors for episode 8 were Jim Reardon, who directed 187 episodes between 1990 and 2005, and Mark Kirkland, who's directed 120 episodes between 1990 and 2020. And then in episode 9, Jim Reardon returned to direct that one alongside Stephen Dean Moore, who did 84 episodes between 1990 and 2023. The writers here, episode 7 featured the writings of Ken Keeler, who writes the first segment, The Thing and I. He wrote for 7 episodes between 1995 and 1997, so pretty brief tenure for him, before I think he went on to do a lot of stuff on Futurama. Dan Greaney wrote the second segment there, The Genesis Tub, 67 episodes between 1995 and 2022. And David X. Cohen wrote Citizen Kang, having written 60 episodes of The Simpsons total, mostly like 1993 to like 1998, but then he did come back in 2020 and write an episode there. And he is, of course, also a co-founder or co-creator of Futurama, which is what took him away from The Simpsons for many of those years. Episode 8 featured Mike Scully writing The Omega Man. He did 12 episodes between 1994 and 2002. He also was one of the many writers on The Simpsons movie. David X. Cohen returns for the Fly vs. Fly segment, and Ned Goldreyer wrote the Easy Bake Coven segment, having done 35 episodes between 1996 and 1998. And then episodes 9 was written by Donna Carey, who writes Hell to Pay. He did 34 episodes between 96 and 99. Larry Doyle wrote The Terror of Tiny Toon, and also 28 episodes between 1997 and 2001. And for the three-peat of this trilogy, or this medley, David X. Cohen came back and wrote Starship Poopers. And I believe, per one of the trivia things I saw, I don't think I pulled it in here, but I'm pretty sure that pointed to his work on this episode in Starship Poopers as his last Simpsons thing until he came back in 2020. And that's like his byline in that episode is like, David, watch Futurama, Cohen, as like his little spooky name. Our cast of characters, starring Dan Castellaneta as Homer, who is now at 752 episodes and counting since 1989. Julie Kavner as Marge, 751 episodes. Nancy Cartwright as Bart, 751 episodes. Yeardley Smith as Lisa, 749 episodes. Hank Azaria as Moe and Others, 741 episodes. Harry Shearer as Flanders and Others in 751 episodes. And then some of the kind of supporting cast members for these 3 episodes. We have Marsha Wallace as Edna Krabappel, who did 172 episodes before she passed in 2013. Pamela Hayden as Rod Flanders has done 672 episodes over the run of the show. Maggie Roswell in here as Maude Flanders, having done 273 episodes over the run of the show. And Tress MacNeille as Agnes Skinner in 624 episodes over the course of the run. And I will shout them out. They're not in any of these episodes, but Russie Taylor is somebody we all, often see in these, who does voices like Martin Prince and whatnot. And they've been in 193 episodes. And they were also like the voice of Minnie Mouse for many years. Our cameos, we have one of the, actually I believe maybe the last performance of Phil Hartman as Lionel Hutz.
Incredible.
Or no, he's not Lionel Hutz here. I just have that as copied from the other thing. He was Bill Clinton in episode 7. He was in 52 episodes overall between 91 and 98. No cameos in episode 8, but then in episode 9, we get Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger in the cold open. We get live action versions of Kathy Lee Gifford and Regis Philbin. And then we get Ed McMahon and Jerry Springer. I don't think I pulled it in as trivia. Let me double check. No. But the Ed McMahon cameo in episode 9 was allegedly supposed to be Phil Hartman as Troy McClure, but sadly he passed away before they ever were able to record and do that. So Ed McMahon basically was their, also ran choice to come in and do that little let's watch everybody's favorite game show execution, whatever, blah blah blah.
That would have been a perfect Phil Hartman.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it would have been a great Troy McClure gag. Yeah. So and for all those guests, Robert Englund, Kathleen Lee, Ed McMahon, Regis Philbin, and Jerry Springer also pops up, of course, at the end there. That was their one and only appearance on The Simpsons across the board. Some trivia for these. As we often do with our Simpsons episodes, we have the Bart's chalkboard message, which is not a typical feature in these, though episode 9 did feature Bart writing the title of the episode on the chalkboard with blood.
Yep.
The sofa gag for each episode in episode 7. The Grim Reaper is on the couch. The family runs in, but keel over and die one by one. The Reaper then puts his feet up on the corpses of the Simpson family. In episode 8, we get the Simpsons sit on the couch. Metal shackles restrain their wrists and ankles, and metal caps come down on all their heads. The family writhes in pain as they get shocked by electricity, and then the zombie family plus head swap. I just copied these from Wikipedia on this point, so I don't know quite what that meant. And then episode 9, the family never makes it to the living room. Bart slips while skateboarding and hits his head. Lisa gets catapulted into the roof over the garage after tripping over Bart while cycling. And Homer gets run down by Marge's car. In the living room, Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees are on the couch wondering where the Simpsons are. Some other trivia things I pulled in here. We'll go through the rest of the trivia kind of episode by episode, and we'll talk about the episode as we go. So for episode 7, I'm going to start kind of pulling in in part because the Wikipedia page on the Treehouse of Horror episodes has a nice little breakdown of this. But I'll pull in basically the inspirations for segments that were clearly inspired by something else. So the Genesis tub is based on The Little People, a Twilight episode from 1962, which then later became the kind of the centerpiece for the eventual South Park episode, titled The Simpsons Already Did It.
Yep.
Was very much that segment. But then Citizen Kang is, of course, not really based on a thing in particular so much as the 1996 presidential election. And our episode here establishes that Kang and Kodos are sisters. The 1996 presidential election occurred a few days after the airing of this episode, and according to David X. Cohen, the Citizen Kang short violated every rule of the show as it locked the episode into one time and named specific candidates. In a 2000 Entertainment Weekly article, Matt Groening ranked this Halloween episode as his 7th favorite in the history of the show. And this is the first Treehouse of Horror episode to double as the season premiere. So before we dive into the future episodes, what do we think of Treehouse of Horror episode 7?
I was just going to say, to add to that as well, to the Matt Groening one, IGN ranked the Citizen Kang segment as the best segment in the entire history of Treehouse of Horror, and the episode overall as its number 1 best Treehouse of Horror episode of all time. When it did its ranking in 2017, which I don't agree with on either front, but nonetheless, IGN very much loves it.
You guys can't see it, but the image I've got next to me on this for this is the back of Homer's head looking out at naked Bob Dole and naked Bill Clinton floating out into space.
Nice. Top tier episode.
Yeah. Let's talk, I guess, let's go kind of segment by segment. We start with The Thing and I, where we find out Bart was the evil twin all along, which I think is a fun subversion on
Yeah.
what they're setting up, and especially with like the deformed creature in the attic. He must be the evil one. Oh no, Bart's clearly the evil one. And like, I didn't remember it being so like blatant that they show you which one's the evil one, you know, in the flashback, and then like seeing exactly where Bart has his scar. It's like, oh, well, based on what you just showed us, he's the evil one.
Yeah.
Like I remember that going right over my head as a kid, I'm sure.
Same.
It went over my head now. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's like, no, if that's true, I wouldn't have a scar on my. Oh god! And it's like, oh, that's the side that the evil one was on, based on where that scar is placed. So, yeah, I love sequences like this. I mean, like one that caught me as like a. I know where they're going with this because I've seen this, you know, many a time, and but it's still like a fun gag is, you know, after they run away screaming from the attic, like the camera just cuts on like 3 different sized vases, and we hear like all the kids being like, "It's too hot in here," and it's like they're not in those vases; they're in the closet right next door.
It's such a great call, such a great gag.
Yeah.
Also, just them holding Maggie up as like the light, and just Bart putting her up first in the attic in general, I thought was really like funny gag of like, let's just sacrifice the baby.
Yeah, of course.
And have her be the shield.
And I mean, like even stuff like the beginning where you know, Bart or Homer and Marge are very like hush hush about what's up in the attic, what noise they're hearing, and then Homer's like, gonna go, you know, like he sings his little ditty about like feeding fish heads to the thing.
Yeah.
And saying like, you know, I had what all of my kids, whatever, I don't remember the specific line, but basically like gives away the game a couple times that there's like a 4th child in the attic.
One of the things that I thought was interesting, having watched 4 episodes of this today, is how much of a recurring theme of like Homer and Marge not being evil, but like hiding, like the adults being the bad guys in some sense, of like hiding things from them. I thought was really interesting. This one is on the milder side, but just, it was interesting that even here they're still kind of hush hush hiding things from the kids, and how that like it's a big plot point in a lot of these segments throughout Treehouse of Horror. I
love the visual gag of Hugo having like practiced sewing things together by the pigeon rat, and then just like the pigeon tries to fly away and it hits the thing, falls to the ground, and then the rat runs and can't get into the hole. Yeah, it's like nice.
This is the first. So funny enough, this is actually the first Treehouse of Horrors episode I watched as a kid, like ever.
Oh wow!
I mean, it makes sense. 1996, that would have been like a more appropriate age for you to be seeing this.
Absolutely, yeah, no. But I remember watching it and thinking to myself, like, being horrified at the implication that Bart would be like trapped in the attic forever, and like that haunted me for like I don't know for how long, but that like stuck with me for a very long time. This
establishes he was the evil twin, so he's getting off pretty early.
But I was also horrified at the thought that Marge and Homer kept their other son trapped in like. I'm like, Cameron, it's so wrong.
Yeah,
he didn't realize that Treehouse of Horror wasn't canon yet. All right, that's what the issue was. Here, right?
Absolutely, yeah, no, because I was like, what's gonna happen? And my friend explained to me, he goes, it's not like they're just like it only is once, like it's not like forever. And I was like, oh, okay. But it still haunted me for forever that parents would do that. I'm like, this is so bad.
Yeah,
trapped their evil kid.
My parents are justified in telling us that we shouldn't be able to watch it.
Apparently, yeah, it corrupted your mind at a very young age. I also love the and we get a couple of these over the course of these episodes, but I love Dr. Hibbert being like, "Hey Hugo, do you want to see your you see yourself in a mirror?" And he holds up a mirror and just punches him in the face.
So good.
So good. Oh my god. Yeah, just the immediate physical violence on like it's weird because like I'm super desensitized to like Homer choking Bart and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like Dr. Hibbert, a doctor just punching a kid in the face is like, oh, that's
good.
That got me so hard. Like I laughed so hard when that happened because I totally forgot that it happens, and it was
the biggest pop for the segment for me.
It was so good.
I also forgot what happened. So like I was like, is he gonna hit him over the head with it, or what's gonna what's gonna be the thing? And just boom, and I was like, could have made it better. Couldn't have been more perfect.
The most like prescient moment of the episode, I thought, was when Dr. Hibbett's like, yeah, they were Siamese twins, and Lisa is, because I'm in my head thinking, oh, that feels dated, and Lisa being like, I think they actually prefer like conjoined twins, and he's like, that's nice, it's nice that that's what they prefer, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, even that little bit would probably be cut out, and it would very much be like Lisa being the like bastion of reason and like political correctness on this. But it like, given the time frame that this came out in, I was surprised that we even got that line from Lisa about like, because I mean, yeah, like all growing up, it was Siamese twins for me, and like this was probably the first time I ever heard of the idea of conjoined twins, but it definitely didn't stick compared to Siamese twins for a long time.
For me, the best part of that was like, I was like, okay, yeah, like Lisa correct him, and then he was like, well, I'm sure like hillbillies prefer to be called you know, and it was just like perfect. It's like, that's an amazing thing as like someone who grew up very close to hillbilly country out in Southwest Missouri and Northern Arkansas. I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what I've heard before.
Yeah. So then we go on to the Genesis tub, which is like, this is one of the most iconic ones for me growing up.
Yeah, I agree.
And I like, even well before the South Park Simpsons already did it kind of gag that like, you know, very much refreshed it in memories and stuff. But yeah, the idea of Lisa's, you know, tooth plus soda plus electricity creating this little tiny civilization that like just races through evolution.
Yeah.
It was such a delight. And I remember getting a chuckle at the like, oh, I've created Lutherans. Like as a kid, probably even before I really understood, you know, the aspect
history
of that.
Of Martin Luther.
I love and we get this is another thing, we get like a few of these with Lisa too, because one of the things I saw somebody talk about recently is the idea that like, as much of a smarty as Lisa is, she still enjoys simple things. She still like sits down and watches Itchy and Scratchy with Bart and stuff like that and laughs her head off. And so like her little moment like that in this is like, oh, she's just made this like crazy scientific breakthrough and created like a civilization of living people. Ooh, waffles. And then goes down and is immediately disappointed because it's not waffles, it's just square pancakes. Yeah, love that. Love the Bart's oops my finger slipped just like wreaking havoc on the townsfolk. Any other moments you guys want to shout out about this one?
The shrinkification ray, and then when he goes, you have to make me big again.
The debigification ray.
Yeah, the
debigulator.
Yeah.
Sorry, the debigulator. Yeah,
the debigulator, and then follow that up with like a reverse debigulator. That's impossible.
A rebigulator. Yeah,
rebigulator.
Yeah,
so good. It's
like just the use of like Frink in this tiny civilization was a nice, easy shorthand kind of thing of like, oh, that's the science guy. Cool. How about you, Logan?
I mean, I think all of it. It's in the running for being my favorite one, along with the first segment of the episode, I think. I just think all of it. Like, I really liked when Lisa gets shrunk, and the whole all of the interaction with her and the creature she's created here. I think are like really perfect. Like Bart is a devil, her is God. Like her trying to like fix things and then like just kind of being like, all right, well, I guess I'm just gonna be God here. And like telling me to go get like,
shouldn't you all be groveling? Yeah.
Yeah, and then like
give me some shoes.
My favorite,
some nice shoes, nice ones.
My favorite line of the entire episode on all three segments is that part of like, go get me some shoes, and he goes like, well, I think she might want socks too. I'll get the socks. And just like as the guy's like walking, it's like, oh, it's like a perfect like actual conversation that I could see like happening. And like, I just think the level of cleverness in the writing throughout that whole episode or that whole segment is like so on point. It's so good.
Yeah, I also love that like everything. I mean, I love the when the civilization it becomes so advanced that they can send like spaceships out to attack Bart. Another early use of CG and computer animation for The Simpsons. And I love that like the whole the whole segment kind of sets him up to be like, yeah, as soon as Lisa's not there, he's going to like crush her, and so like he's going to crush them and the civilization. So as soon as she gets like shrunk down, it's like, oh, her like days are numbered. And instead of doing that, he goes and submits it to the science fair, and I love the like Principal Skinner telling Willie to throw out all the other
So good.
throw out all the other projects. Bart wins first prize here. Yeah.
It's also, I think, like, this is such a like Twilight Zone idea with a Simpsons ending, which I think makes it so cool to like. I could see this being something that happens in Twilight Zone of like accidentally creating an advanced society and like being God for them, and just the way they play off the ending and the punchline not being what you would expect at all is just great.
Yeah. And then this episode wraps up with Citizen Kang, where we get our fun little look at how Kang and Kodos take over the 1996 election between Clinton and Dole. So what does anybody... Cam, let's start to you first. What did you think of that one?
I loved it. Even as a kid, I was a pretty big political junkie. This is a little bit before I got into like super into politics, but it has one of my best bits, which is one of my favorite political bits of all time, which is Bob Dole referred to himself in the third person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When Bob Dole gets picked up, he goes, "Oh, Bob Dole doesn't like this. Bob Dole."
Mm-hmm.
Like it's still one of my favorite bits of all time.
Something that the Family Guy would take to 11, but yeah.
Yeah.
Even
in another Simpsons thing, there's a Bob Dole reference where Bob Dole can't stop referring to himself as Bob Dole, but it's absolutely perfect. It's the epitome of just like, hey, this is how we talk about how like effed up our system is. But it's also weird seeing this in like the year 2023, where it's like, oh, if that's your biggest problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Logan?
It's my least favorite of the three, which in some ways is interesting because I obviously, like, Cameron is a huge, politics guy. It largely didn't work for me. I mean, there are definitely good moments, and I think a lot of them are around the Bob Dole, Bill Clinton, or I guess the alien versions of those two characters. Like in particular, like when they're holding hands and the guy in the DNC truck comes up and says like, people are asking what's going on with the holding hand thing. It's like, can you think of a better way to share neutron strings? And it's like, I thought not. It was like such a great, like out of nowhere response.
Yeah, it's moments like that. I'm like, yeah, this was a David X. Cohen writing.
And so like, yeah, it's not my favorite one, but I think it's still good. And I always enjoy the ways they incorporate aliens in the Treehouse of Horror episodes. And just sort of their like fish out of water nature in Springfield. And so it was good. It's not my favorite one. It's my favorite one of the three, but it's still
solid.
Operating at a high clip. You're right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, some notes I took. I love the opening bit with Homer like presenting himself for rectal probe, and them being like, "We've reached the limits of what rectal probing can teach us." So please no. I love the like trying to placate the audience, and what finally gets them is abortions for some, miniature flags for others, and that's what gets the most cheers. Because that still would apply to today. I love Homer running into the UFO and then having to like pull the bush aside to see the corner of the UFO, and then like the camera zooms out and you see that bush was just covering a tiny sliver. The rest of the UFO was very visible. I was like, yeah, that sounds like Homer. As obviously the gag of Homer accidentally shooting the Kennedys out into space after they've like decided to come together for the betterment of humanity, always a good fun gag. And then the most maybe prescient lines that end up kind of like influencing a generation being all right. You like the whole bit about like, oh, you think you can vote for a third party? Go ahead, throw your vote away. And I, as somebody who also was not like super political at a young age, but I definitely remember making a lot of fun of my aunt for wanting to vote for Ross Perot in like 1992. I love the gag of Perot sitting there like punching his hat. And then
the most successful third-party candidate of all time.
Yeah,
like legitimately almost won the election.
No,
well, he didn't almost win the election, but he did very good.
He didn't get a single electoral vote. That's why he wasn't able to be in the 1996.
Almost got 20% of the popular vote, though.
Sure.
Sorry, let me rephrase.
I would say.
You are correct. I am wrong. He did not almost win.
Yeah, I would say the. I don't remember who it was. Was it Buchanan in 2000? Who ended up? I would say that is probably the most influential because they stole enough votes away from Gore to push it to the Supreme Court and give it to Bush. So,
well, there was that, but also what was it? It was if Ross Perot hadn't run, there would have been like H.W. Bush would have won. So,
I mean, yeah. And then shout out to the line, "Don't blame me, I voted for Kodos."
Yes, so good.
Yep. All right.
Also, I like how it's like this guy gets elected president. It's like, okay, and then he becomes a king, and it's like not how that works.
Nope. And also, I didn't notice it the first time I was watching it, but it was like when I went back and was like grabbing an image for the thumbnails and stuff for the episode, where it's like, okay, yeah, so the election happens, and then we cut to inauguration day when he's now like a king and stuff like that. It's like, well, you had 3 months. You could have had the past government intercede and be like, no, we're not ceding power to aliens who came here to conquer Earth. Stupid peaceful transition of power. So moving on to episode 8, Treehouse of Horror episode 8. The influences on this one, the Omega Man is based on the 1971 Charlton Heston film, The Omega Man.
Yeah.
And Fly versus Fly, in addition to having its fun little image as a nod to the Spy versus Spy, Mad Magazine, classic cartoon kind of font. The segment itself is based on the 1958 sci-fi film, and which was itself based on a 1957 Playboy published horror short story, The Fly. So it's not based on the like Jeff Goldblum one from the 80s. It's based on that 1958 version with more body switching functionality. And then the last one, the Easy Bake Coven is not particularly based on anything apart from the origins of Halloween. So the comic book guy's line,
I was going to talk about this as well.
I've wasted my life just before his doom is Matt Groening's favorite line.
It's one of my favorite Simpsons lines as well.
Yeah.
I love it.
The producers had trouble with the censors over several segments in the episode. The opening segment of the episode, which features the aforementioned Fox censor being stabbed to death, was pitched by David Merkin and had a difficult time getting through the real-life censors. Because, it is interesting putting that in the context of like, oh, yeah, this is probably like in the early days of the TV rating system, so going from like TVG to PG to, blah, 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 and ending with like TV 666. But yes, they had issues with the size of the knife and the sound effects used. Originally, the TV rating was supposed to stab censor with a dagger, but Fox objected because it was too gruesome and it was changed to a cutlass. The censors also objected to an unaired scene where Homer does his naked church dance on an altar. So the scene was reanimated so that Homer was instead dancing naked in the front row. And honestly, that was the thing. Like seeing Homer dance in the dance naked in the church in the front row, I was more shocked given the very puritanical nature of our society that made it in, because that I'm sure probably ruffled the most feathers. Because violence, people don't care about violence, especially cartoon violence. But like, he's dancing naked in a church. The disrespect, the blasphemy.
The censor one in particular, one of my favorite things about Treehouse of Horror is just how often they absolutely skewer Fox censors. It's been a recurring theme throughout the first 8 episodes of this we've done now. Just like them absolutely lampooning them. And this is, I think, in the running for me, my favorite one. It is very, very good.
Yeah. And then lastly, this was the last episode that Brad Bird worked on as an animator before he left the show to direct The Iron Giant. So what were our thoughts on this one? We open, we already talked about the kind of the censor and the rating gag. So the Omega Man, I'll throw it to you first, Logan. What were your thoughts on the Omega Man?
I really liked it.
As I switched the image to be Homer walking out of the bomb shelter in front of a nuked Herman.
I think this is my favorite of the 3 episodes in general. I think pound for pound and like segment for segment. And I think it starts off really strong. Both it's like also very political, just like the last one was. And it's got, like I said, one of my all-time favorite lines from Simpsons that I like still quote from Comic Book Guy. And then everything Homer does really is just perfect. Like I really love him like mowing down the 2 guys he thinks are mutants. I love him dancing naked in the church. I love him getting like surprised with everyone. The like really beautiful, poignant speech that Marge gives at the end that is immediately punctured with a shotgun blast to the mutants that I like had completely forgotten about is like the punchline hit me so good. Like I was just like rolling laughing at that. It was like just so unexpected. Like I think this whole episode, you know, for like a 9-10 minute Simpsons story is like in a lot of ways kind of just like a perfect choice of horror like segment. Like it excels so good at like parodies and comedy and like throwing you for a loop at the end and like the plot twist. Like it's one of my favorite ones, and it continues to be after watching it again.
How about you, Cam?
I love these ones. I think the Omega Man is one of the top tier, like absolutely
so
best
good.
ones. Just the way that they go through everything so quickly, the mutants and everything, like it all happens so fast. But one of my favorite gags of all time is Homer coming out of the bunker, finishing the can of steak.
Oh yeah,
and be like,
I didn't
and you
mention
call that prime rib, and puts it in the hands of the skeleton.
Skeleton, yeah.
It's so good, but also it says on the can that it's steak, not that it's prime rib, and it's just the layers that joke has, I think, are just fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, that reminds me, Cameron, I'm glad you mentioned that. The like 20 seconds after that, when Homer is like stuck at a traffic light and honking his horn and gets out of his car and like hits the guy and goes, "Still got it."
Yeah.
Was like as he knocks his head off, was like such a good moment as well.
Millhouse's dad in particular.
Yeah.
He just like punches through the skull of Millhouse's dad.
The most pathetic person in Springfield.
Yeah. My notes here, like, which is a very jarring note to read. But the first note I had is, "I stand by my ethnic slur." The whole thing that pops off with the French's Mayor Quimby's frog legs joke, and like such a tame, thing.
Yeah.
But
Also, shout out to them being
Especially
like,
in 2023.
of course, yeah.
shout out to them being also like it was like France, da da da. Then it like zooms over to like a secret base.
Yeah. Well, it's like how dare he call us frogs? We are not frog-like. And then it cuts to everybody, and they've all got like bulging necks as they like laugh or whatever. I love inside the bomb shelter, Homer not getting the Gary Larson calendar. It's just like simple Far Side gags that just go over Homer's head. The iconic "Oh, I've wasted my life."
Because before he was like, "Oh, Aquaman, you can't marry her. She doesn't have gills."
Yeah. I love the, like, it's such a silly, subtle thing, but like as Homer remembers his family, we see like the little ghost images of like Bart swinging a bat and he hits at something. Lisa playing baseball for some reason also swings and hits something, and then Marge swings and a miss. Just to like it gets a chuckle out of me. It was very much one of those this was one of those I was remembering the episode about a second or two before things were happening. So like, he finally gets home and the family's alive, and I'm like, oh, that's right. it's going to be a lead paint joke that saved them kind of thing. And sure enough, there we get. And then, yeah, to your point, Logan, they like the beautiful speech with Marge is happening and like, yeah, let's have peace between normies and mutants. And I'm like, she and the kids have shotguns behind their back and they're about to blow away these zombies, these mutants. So yeah, I loved kind of just all of that. And just, yeah, the like, Simpsons audacity, given the religious nature of our country, of Homer dancing naked in the front of a church, and that's where he gets discovered by the mutants. I thought was a fun little chuckle for me. So yeah. Then we move over to Fly versus Fly, where I love the opening segment of them at like Frink's yard sale and Homer haggling down from $2 for a teleportation stations down to 35 cents. Just gets me and makes me chuckle. I love that we got the kind of impetus for what would become the Nickelodeon show Cat Dog, as well as the two butts version of that animal. Bart's image of what he thinks he's going to be as a Superfly versus the actual Superfly variations of fun. I had forgotten about Bart taunting the spider though. So like when he's out there like saying, help me, I forgot that was going to be like him getting up and being like, smacking the spider so and then flying away. Yeah, great stuff there. And then I don't know why it made me chuckle, but it did. Lisa doesn't push the Bart fly back into the machine to try and like transfer him back. She opens the microwave door to whack him in the face and knock it. And I was like, I don't know why, but that makes that such a better joke. So yes. And also shout out to the robot trying to present itself as sold at the beginning of the episode as well. So there's my little gags. Any others that I missed or forgot about in this one?
No, I think we're good.
Anything from you, Logan?
I just think it's a really funny episode. You know, I like the image of like how quickly the family adopts Fly Bart.
Yeah, the flyhead Bart. Yeah.
Yeah. And like Homer like reaching around as he's eating the like sugar. And you think he's gonna like give him a pat on the back. He's actually just trying to get sugar for himself. And then like, when the Fly Bart's chasing after Bart, he's just like eating the sugar from the box that he was just eating out of. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a nice touch. I thought Fly Bart like hanging on the like ceiling and like the goo dripping down was like an actual like good like horror movie moment. Like it's just a really, again, this whole episode. I think this whole episode is really really standout. But this is another great segment, I think, just kind of across the board.
And yeah, even before the fly stuff, shout out to Homer's, like, just the depths of Homer's laziness with the teleportation thing, including finally being shut down from Marge when he tries to pee into one that is set up.
Then accidentally punches Lisa in the face when he,
All right, then we wrap up this one with Easy Bake Coven. Cam, what were your thoughts on that segment?
Easy Bake Coven is one of my favorite ones, just because, for a couple of things. One,
because fuck the Puritans and the witch trials.
Fuck the Puritans and their Puritan work ethic. But also, it's funny because Marge does her Marge thing, and she ends up getting shoved off a cliff for it. Mm-hmm. Then it turns out she was a witch. And then she goes to visit her sisters, and it's just oh, you thought you could get away without them knowing that you're a witch. Ha ha ha. And then it ends with them just being with one of my favorite bits out of any of these episodes. It's Marge saying, oh my gosh, those cookies were so delicious. Who would have thought? It's like, yeah, too bad we filled up on all those real children on our way to the Flanders before we got that figured out.
Yeah.
Just so good. Such a way of doing like storytelling. Like these, one of the reasons why Treehouse of Horror is so great is because they tell such condensed, solid stories in such a short amount of time. And this is one of the best ones where you have a total rise and peak and then fall. And then it ends with one of the best jokes ever, which is Homer throwing a rock through somebody's window for not being home during Halloween. And Lisa pointing out that it's their home and Homer going, she's a witch. just to
Yeah.
the perfect send off for this episode. It's so good.
Yeah. Anything to add, Logan?
I have a lot to add. Yeah, I love this segment. This whole episode, it's in the run for being my favorite of the, at this point, 8 we've done, but 9. It's just so good. Like, I think, like Cam said, like the reveal of Marge and the way they go out to prove if she's a witch or not is just like so Monty Python and the Holy Grail esque, right?
If
like,
you die, you die a good Christian death.
And if you don't, you're a witch, right? It's the same thing as like if you sing, she's a witch. Yeah, like I think it's so clever. I think how it gives you like a plausible story for like the origins of Halloween is like really great. Marge's like throwaway line of like, "I wish we discovered this before we ate all the other children before we got here." Like, was a great moment. Like Cameron said, Homer egging his own house and smashing the window before he realizes that it's his home, and then sending everyone after Lisa is great. The entire like town council meeting to open the episode where they're like hunting for witches is also really good, and I really enjoy Homer immediately going after Flanders' wife as the witch. It's so in character and so perfect. Yeah, like there are just so many small details that I just think it's a great episode.
Yeah, some last little cappers that I want to shout out, because this is probably the first time I noticed it. But shout out to Edna having the scarlet letter
Yes.
on her
Oh, I didn't
on
even
her
catch
frock.
that.
Yeah, she's just got the big red A and
Yep.
being that definitely would have gone over my head as a kid.
Yeah.
So shout out to that. And like it's especially relevant since one of the congresswomen out there was wearing an A because she's an idiot, and thinking
Yeah.
thinking that's what it means to be persecuted by it's like,
Yeah, she's wearing
you didn't read the book. You don't know what the A stands for.
Right.
All you're saying is I'm a whore.
Yeah. So yeah, seeing that pop up, I was like it being Edna in particular, I was like, that's hilarious. I love the line we get because somebody's like, well, doesn't the Bible say judge not lest ye be judged? And then somebody being like, the Bible says a lot of things. Shove her. Great gag there. And then a fun little, I think it's a line between Ned and his wife, where his wife's like, they'll cause wanton acts of carnality, and like Ned under his breath is like, yeah, that'll be the day.
It's
It's
so
like,
good.
whoa, Ned
It's
Flanders,
so
you got some
good.
bite to you in puritanical times.
Yeah, the idea that he's being like, yeah, she doesn't give.
Yeah. But yes, the I wish we hadn't filled up on all those kids before we got to the Flanders is a peak joke to cap off that little bit. So yeah, shout out to episode 8 there. Then we'll wrap up today's episode with Treehouse of Horror, episode 9. Where our trivia for this, Hell to Pay, is actually based on a 1986 episode of the same name from Amazing Stories, which was a 2-season Steven Spielberg-helmed anthology series. Also, one of the executive producers on that, Kathleen Kennedy. And then the other episode, or one of the other segments, The Terror of Tiny Toon, was based on the 1992 John Ritter and Pam Dauber comedy Stay Tuned, which was legitimately one of my favorites growing up as a child. I watched that so many times because like it's I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, but it is John Ritter's character and his wife, Pam Dauber, Mindy from Mork and Mindy, if you are unaware. They buy like a big fancy satellite TV and find out after the fact they basically just made a deal with the devil, and they get sucked into the satellite TV and have to survive 24 hours to be freed, and they're constantly being like flipped through channels, or they're going through like different channels, and like it's a whole bunch of TV shows with like deadly twists and stuff. And so like it'll be a cooking show, and then like the chef starts trying to kill you with the knives or something like that. There's a fun gag in particular where John Ritter basically in one of the channel flips goes into Three's Company, and it's a fun little like Three's Company reunion before like the other women end up being like demons in disguise. And I remember really loving it as a kid because in one of the segments they get sucked into a like Mel Blanc produced animated sequence where they become cartoon mice or something, and the cat is trying to kill them with like deadly blades and stuff, and it's effectively the itchy and scratchy segment that we get in that one. So yeah, like watching it, I was like, oh, this is like that movie that I liked as a kid, and then reading in the thing that it's based on Stay Tuned, I was like, yep, that's the one. So yeah, shout out to that nostalgia hit from my childhood. Other trivia we have: in Hell to Pay, David X. Cohen used his scary treehouse name to promote the then upcoming Futurama. If you look at the credits, as Snake picks up a comb, his name pops up as David Watch Futurama Cohen. As I said earlier, in one scene, Marge is abducted by Kang and Kodos, who lasso her, then pull her into the ship. And according to David X. Cohen in probably the commentary for this episode, it was a running gag that Kang and Kodos' abduction methods are never the same. So hence the lasso this time around. In Terror of Tiny Toon, Bart and Lisa were originally going to end up on Ally McBeal, but that ended up being dropped when Callista Flockhart backed out at the last minute, and so they instead did the Live with Regis and Kelly, Regis and Kathy Lee a little bit, which is like the most dated thing, because while they've like up-res the the animation stuff, that like 90s TV was really still very 90s TV and not great fidelity. And then lastly, during Starship Poopers, there's a shot of sound waves emanating from Springfield. And at one point, there's a shot of North America, and it appears that Springfield is located in Louisiana. So the mystery of the location of Springfield was a running joke on The Simpsons, and a number of fans assumed from this episode that Louisiana was where the family lived. However, the animators had drawn the waves so that they were coming from the center of the screen and never intended them to emanate from a specific location on the map. So, yes, the mystery of where The Simpsons, where Springfield is, lives on. So what did we think of this one? Cam, let's start to you first for Hell to Pay.
Hell to Pay is just one of my favorite all-time Treehouse of Horror episodes. It is so freaking hilarious. From top to bottom, it's just nothing but like bit on bit on bit on bit. And I think it's one of my favorite things about it is like the bits just keep growing. It's not just like, oh, we're gonna have a couple different jokes kind of like throughout the entire thing. It's everything is based on a single bit, which is Snake swears to kill everyone, including Bart, after Chief Wiggum
outs him as, hey, don't forget Bart Simpson's here too.
Bart's a witness. And everything from there is building off of that joke, that bit of like eventually everything's coming back for Bart, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then ends in a freaking hilarious segment of the Wig trying to get away and being shot by the Wiggum and the police, and just like overkill and keeps getting up and trying to like move away, and it's so over the top and so hilarious. Also, shout out to how horrifying that image is of seeing the Wig take root in Homer's brain. It's so good on so many. Also, like Homer breaking into like snake speak. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I always thought that there was a point where like Homer as Snake like bangs Marge and tuckers her out, and then he goes out. But that was not accurate. That's not like young Cameron thought that, and older Cameron's like, nah, that never happened, man.
No, that's just young Cameron fantasizing about a thing that's not there in the episode.
I thought that them going to bed and Homer getting out of bed was like an insinuation, because I was like 8,
sure,
and barely had a grasp on what sex even was as a concept. And so I think that's another thing too. It's like if the couple is in bed, they had sex.
Yeah. This isn't the what's an example? Dick Van Dyke, where they're in separate beds. So it's okay. They're not banging it out tonight.
I think that was part of it also, because like my context of like characters that have had sex, it's like they're shown in bed afterwards. In all TV shows, that's just how it was. If they're shown before they go to bed, oh, they just went to sleep. But if they show them afterwards, they banged. And so I think like over the years, I just always thought that that's what happened, and it's not accurate whatsoever.
Sure. Logan, any bits from here that you want to give a shout out to?
I like how dark the premise behind the episode is in a lot of ways, right? Sort of like Cameron was saying, of just being like, I mean, it's essentially like a revenge murder plot, right? Like this is just like an actual like horror movie plot of like, coming from the grave to kill everyone, Final Destination style, right? And I sort of love that. I sort of love how like dark they let it get. Like Cameron said, Homer in particular is like kind of deliciously demented in this episode, and everything that he does is great, right? Like, which seems like a silly thing to say because Homer is sort of always great, but like he's just like on such a other level here.
There's a malevolence we never get to see from Homer as like the character.
Very, very rarely, right? Like
Yeah.
the Shining episode is a good example of that too, where like you just don't get to see like that like sort of diabolicalness usually from him. And it's great here, right? Like I love how much they sort of lean into that and blend it into like a really great marriage of like actual horror and comedy. And I think it pulls it off really well, like Cameron said.
I think my second favorite bit out of this entire thing, my favorite bit is the hair getting shot.
Yeah, I agree.
My second favorite bit is seeing Chief Wiggum slurp a Slurpee.
Yeah.
And then it pans over and he just keeps drinking it. And he goes, "Oh, come on, guys. How are you going to let me drink it?" And then goes back to drinking more of it.
Because, in the pan over, we see
Abu's
legs like hanging out of the Slurpee machine.
Oh, yeah.
The
good news is that he died a painless death. I don't know. Chief looks pretty painful to me.
Yeah. My favorite gag of the episode, while the hair overkill being shot at the end is certainly a good one, my favorite gag and the thing that got me probably the biggest laugh of all three of these episodes was Dr. Nick saying this drug will take away all the pain, and then he just punches Homer and shoots himself with the drug for the operation. I was like, I forgot how much I love Dr. Nick.
Dr. Nick is so great.
He's just perfect in small doses like this one.
Who would have thought that inflammable and unflammable mean the same thing? Yeah.
Shout out to like just a runner of doctors punching patients in this run of episodes. Also shout out to just the cruelty of the file photo for Mo as a visual gag. Like he's just coming out of a porta potty or a toilet or something.
An
like
outhouse,
that.
yeah.
An outhouse. Just being like, oh, poor Mo.
Local sleaze.
Yeah. And then I love like when Homer's with Snake's hair is in there trying to kill Bart at the end, like the rest of the family coming in and Lisa being like, "Oh no, Snake's hair must have, infected," and Marge just being like, "Oh, come on, Lisa, everyone's already figured that out." Great gag there. And yeah, shout out to the capper. Now that's what I call a bad hair day, just being the absolute cheesiest joke to cap things off. Like it's the antithesis of the like, oh, I wish we'd I wish we'd realized this before we got to the Flanders house. It's the opposite of that kind of joke, but it still works.
So good.
Because they do good. And also shout out to the like no smoking sign. And like shout out to the fact that like what kicks this all off is just Snake smoking indoors, and that's just his third strike.
Yeah.
Like his prior crimes are far worse, but because he's getting caught here smoking, and that's his third strike, he's going to get executed.
How cleverly political and subversive Simpsons are is like always, I think.
Oh, also shout out to Snake combing his hair with nacho cheese. So fucking gross.
Yeah. But yeah, shout out to the like very small no smoking sign being surrounded by Laramie smoking ads kind of thing, to the point that like I had to actually look for where this no smoking sign was that they were referencing.
They're just so good at being so like, this is really truly great political satire, is how much they draw attention to it without drawing attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then we go into the Terror of Tiny Toon. So again, shout out to shout out to really anytime they play with Itchy and Scratchy, but this time shout out to them getting like plutonium batteries and getting sucked into the TV.
Homer just having a plutonium battery the perfect size of a remote, just like chilling in his.
I mean, not the perfect size. He does have to hammer it in there,
true.
kind of thing. But yeah, I love the little the police car in the Itchy and Scratchy world, not saying to protect and serve, to protect and sever.
Yeah,
it's a great gag. I'd forgotten about the return of Poochie just to get hit by a car. Because obviously this was after the infamous, Poochie has returned to his home planet thing. And then, as somebody who I remember growing up, every morning as I would get ready for school, my dad would be watching Regis and Kathy Lee. So seeing them pop up here and the kids dropped into a bowl of soup. I almost expected them to shout out Gilman, what is happening there? And shout out to the piranha bit eating up all of Bart's skin, and then as soon as he comes out, Lisa rewinding him, and we reverse it, and he gets the skin back. Yay! So those are some of my favorite little gags.
Oh, shout out to oh, I'm in love. Well, looks like somebody needs to get neutered.
Yeah. I was going to point that out as well, so I'm glad you said that as well.
There you go. Also the. I don't remember what the line was, but the opening was with Krusty was a tried and true cue card gag of he says a thing partway through and it makes him sound really stupid, and then the cue card flips and he says the last little bit that's completes the sentence. Again, I don't remember. My note was Krusty cue card gag, but I didn't write down what it actually was, so I don't recall. But I remember giving a little smile to that. Anything to add on this one, Logan or Cam?
The big one was what Cam shot out, which is the end, Time to Get Neutered. I think it's a weird episode in a lot of ways, especially the Regis and Kathy Lee detour, but a really fun one. It's probably my least favorite of the three, I think. But I couldn't have said it better than Trevor did when he said, anytime Itchy and Scratchy are on screen, it's going to be a good time. Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. And then we wrap up with Starship Poopers. Logan, let's switch to you for this one.
I mean, it's Jerry Springer, right? I mean, it's so good, right? It's Jerry Springer, right? That whole thing, anytime Jerry Springer is being parodied in something, it's probably going to be good. And it doesn't matter if it's Austin Powers doing it or if it's the Simpsons doing it. It's just it just sort of always works because it's so outlandish and larger than life and a caricature of itself in its natural form, so that it becomes almost effortless to do a parody of it, right? A parody of it is almost playing it straight. And so it's great. I think it's such a highlight of the segment. I think, I don't know how, I guess some people feel, but I really like Maggie a lot as a character. And she usually gets the most to do in Treehouse of Horror episodes, just sort of naturally, because otherwise she's a baby. Mm-hmm. And here she can kind of break the rules of what a baby can do. I think it's great for that element of it. I also just this might just be a good Homer episode, actually. All three of these segments, I think, I just really like Homer here. And yeah, him on Jerry Springer is sort of Homer Simpson's natural environment, I think, where he is not a freak or a buffoon, but just sort of a sane individual on Jerry Springer, and it's perfect.
Sure. Cam, how about you?
This one is probably one of my least favorite ones, mainly because
we disagree.
I've never had a strong affinity to Jerry Springer.
I mean, I don't know either, but it's funny, right? I guess is my thing.
Yeah. A lot of the jokes around the Jerry Springer segment, I know about because I grew up in the era of Springer, but I've never found them to be particularly funny. Even when other shows parody it, I've never found the Springer kind of thing funny. But outside of that, I think the whole the selection of human mating ritual habitats.
Yeah, I'll take the alley.
I'll take the alley. And it's like, it's really like that stuff is funny. The idea, it's like, okay, how creepy is this gonna get? Nope, just a ray gun. It's good.
Yeah, that seemed awfully quick. What are you implying? Yeah.
So like a lot of the other stuff I do find funny. Maggie lost her baby feet or her baby legs.
Yeah.
Like that's great. A lot of that stuff is awesome. I'm a big fan of it. But it's the whole Jerry Springer angle that I've never been a fan of. So.
Yeah. Other things that I like about this episode. I enjoy the Maggie lost her baby legs. Is just a fun, like, absurd kind of thing. Somebody calls for fire. Oh, that's your cure for everything. When Kang and Kodos show up, I think it's Homer that says, "Oh, great, Mormons. Actually, we're quantum Presbyterians." I do like the Jerry Springer stuff. I never watched the Jerry Springer show or anything like that, but I think in the context of this, I like it, if only for the fact that we get like the humor of all of the bleeping, which you like the Simpsons have just never done. They stay clean cut. They don't swear or anything like that. And so the fact that they can get away with that while still not really swearing, but like they're, heightened and we get the implication that they're swearing, including an all-time Marge line of "I'm so bleeping embarrassed." I love, and then I love the tag at the end of them being like, give us the baby or we'll destroy all your politicians. Oh, you couldn't destroy every politician, basically egging them on to do it. Don't forget Ken Starr, because obviously we were in the heights. Like this episode, a lot of these episodes were very much like, oh, well, this very much pinpoints this with a specific place and time. Obviously, all the Springer stuff here. But the Ken Starr one in particular, pinpointing it in terms of the Clinton scandal, Clinton Lewinsky scandal of 97, 98, whenever. It's like, yep, that's where we are in time. And we're doing another little dig at politics and stuff. So yeah, I think there's a lot of like little gags in this one that I like, but yeah, it's probably not one of the like. I definitely think I'm hotter on the Springer stuff, and maybe there's an element of that is like a friend of mine went on Springer as like a an actress kind of thing, and she specifically avoided cursing and used like off words for all of her curses that just didn't sound natural or anything like that, but it meant she didn't get bleeped or anything like that. And like the player, like the people, cause spoiler, not all Springer was, real. So yeah, she was just like a hired actress that went on and did it. It's every now and then I'll see like her clips pop up, like when Jerry Springer passed away a year or so back, her clip of her being on the show made the rounds again. And so I just chuckle a little bit at the fact that I know somebody who was on that show and had that experience. So yeah, shout out to Starship Poopers, and its weird little absurdity of I don't remember if it was Kang or Kodos, but one of them having the baby with Marge, being a fun little gag. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. So yeah, let's dive into the report card. We grade from A+ to F. What do we want to give these episodes of Treehouse of Horror 7, 8, and 9? Logan, we'll throw it to you first.
Are we grading them as a package or individually?
I'd say as a package. I mean, if you want to break them out separately, feel free, but I'm only planning on giving A grade.
I'll say an A-. I think 7 and 9. Oh, wait, now actually, yeah, an A-. 8 is my favorite, but 7 and 9 are both still very good. And some of the segments in these episodes are some of the all-time great Treehouse of Horror segments, I think. And like I said earlier in the episode, 8 might be my favorite we've done so far out of the 9.
Cool. Cameron, how about you?
I mean, it's an A+ for me all around. I think that these are... I don't think we'll ever get any of the... Like, I think these are kind of peak Treehouse of Horror for me. I can't think of too many other Treehouse of Horror episodes that I think are better than, like, the 9 that we have here. Yeah. So I think, like, top
4, 5, and 6 is really good, too, that we did last year,
yeah. I would say, like, even though, like, one of them is my least favorite, like, Starship Poopers is still freaking hilarious. It's still freaking hilarious. Like I don't think there's these are all great, and it's all peak comedy for me. So
yeah. I think I'll split the difference and just give it a straight A. I think we're still in the highs, and while I'm sure just because I've seen these ones so many times, they don't hit me like they once did. It is still fun, like being reminded of like when I heard about that joke for the first time or something like that, or even seeing, putting the dots together and like recognizing the Scarlet Letter, gag in this one that's purely a visual gag, doesn't get called out, doesn't get attention brought to it or anything. I think there is still joy to it. I think there were probably higher highs in our last run, episodes 4, 5, and 6 for me, but I don't think any of those were good. You're right. Yeah. I don't think any of these were like a dud in any way. So,
no.
They all get an A from me. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. We have the Simpsons movie, of course, and then we have a whole bunch of Simpsons shorts, including The Simpsons Meet the Bocellis in Feliz Navidad. We have Welcome to the Club, When Billy Met Lisa, The Simpsons in Plusiversary, The Good, the Bart, and the Loki, The Simpsons and Bad Bunny, Te Deseo Lo Mejor, and The Force Awakens from its nap. So go check out those if you're in the mood for more Simpsons stuff. Extracurriculars, anybody watching anything else on Disney Plus? Apart from, I imagine, Cam and I are just keeping up with Loki. Did you watch this last week's Loki, Cam?
Not yet, no.
No? Okay.
I'm probably going to watch more Simpsons.
There you go. Yeah, go enjoy more Simpsons. Go enjoy your "You Only Move Twice" episode.
That's probably what exactly I'm going to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you can't, or Logan. I know your Bondness. You got a taste of Bond. We're like, oh yeah, I definitely need to hit that tonight.
Yeah.
So there you go. I caught up on last week's Loki. It was the most like the finale of season 1 of Loki that the show's gotten so far, and I think a big part of that is the lightest of spoilers, but Jonathan Majors is in it, so we get to see his kind of character. It's another very talky episode, so much so that like I found myself a couple times wondering like how long is this episode going to be, but it was largely because it was low on action and mostly on like plot and exposition and stuff like that. So very interesting stuff. All right, well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining me to talk The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror Medley Volume 3. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie, Loggy. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
I think Trevor is still playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep.
So
there we go.
Check it out.
You follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's, 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, we had a really great episode of That Nerdy Site Show this last week. We kind of like, I think we keep on thinking, these might be like shorter episodes, and then they end up being pretty hefty. But overall, I think it's we had some really great discussions about some stuff that we've been kind of doing lately. We talked a little bit about, I talked about Miles Morales. You talked kind of about the opening of Spider-Man 2. I also got to kind of finish my thoughts on Liza P. It was overall like a really solid episode, so go check that out.
Yeah, there you go. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. In addition to those, Baldur's Gate 3 is definitely the big Let's Play I'm doing. We're in Act 3 now, so you can go catch that. YouTube.com/thatnerdysite. And I will also use this opportunity to shout out that our plans for, barring any changes, our plans for kind of November as we head into that for That D Plus Show. So we're going to do kind of a Marvel month where we'll catch up and do Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because we never did that when it came to Disney Plus. I think we were in the middle of like one of our other series when it came out. So we'll go back and do that one. Then Loki will wrap up in the second week of November. But also coming to Disney Plus in November is Spider-Man Far From Home, so we will return to our Spider-Man series that we've done. with the first couple Tom Hollands of Homecoming and Far From Home. So that's what we have to look forward to on that D Plus show for the month of November. And then we'll get into holiday stuff for December when the time comes. So stay tuned for all of that fun stuff. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. As always, thank you for joining us. Stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.
Do, 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 do.